Good morning, everyone. Let's do some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhur Bhavaswaha, Tat Savitra Varenyam, Vargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Naha Prachodayat, Asto Ma Sadgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamya. Om Sahnavavatu Sahno Bhunaktu Saviryam Karvavahi Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti 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 Om. So on Thursdays we've been going through Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. This is one of the major Upanishads, and Brihad means big, and today's lecture is just a overview of the first chapter. So how many chapters are here in this? 6 of them. 6 chapters. So this is the first chapter. And these chapters are called kands. And first kand is Madhu Kand. That is the name of it actually. Madhu Kand. And this kand has 6 sections. The first section, and these sections are called Brahmans. See, you must have heard these two terms, Sanhita and Brahman. What is the difference? Sanhita is a collection of hymns or prayers to God in various manifestations. It's almost like a formulas which are needed to recite the hymns. And those formulas are also called mantras. So Sanhita is a collection of the hymns or the prayers. And mantras are always addressed to divinities. And there are several divinities, whether we consider Agni Devta, Vayu Devta, okay? So Akash Devta, Isht Devta, those are all divinities. And what is a Brahman then? Brahmans teach the practical use of the verses and the chants. Those are called Brahmans. So Brahmans are presented in Sanhitas. And Sanhitas are in the form of mantras. Those mantras could be poetry. They can be verses. See, just like in this Upanishad, we see verses. Most of this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is in the verses. So do not get confused with the... So Vedas, they are in the Sanhita form. They are collection of the mantras, and mantras we recite. But Brahmans, they teach us the practical use of all these verses and the chants which are presented in the Sanhita. Okay, so sometimes it gets very confusing, all these different names, they get used. So this particular Upanishad is a part of Yajurveda. And in Yajurveda, we see a lot of Yajna mantras. So that's why over here also, all of these, the whole Brihadaranyaka Upanishad can be used as a Yajna. So that's why we saw that Ashvamedha Yajna also. Sometimes we think that Yajna is only when we light the fire. No. Yajna is any action where we remember God and we give the offerings to God. We connect ourselves to God, and what the result comes out of it, we share it with others. That's a yajna. So not forgetting God, doing what we need to do, and then fruits should be shared. It's not only for one person. That's why even when we do the very simple yajna, in our homes also, at the end we always do, we stand up and we pray for everybody else. and what is called Puran Ahuti. Without that Puran Ahuti, without praying for everybody else, our yajna is never complete, because it's not a yajna then. Okay, so 6 sections in the first chapter we saw. Let me go through very quickly first and then little bit in detail if we have time. The first section was Ashvamedha Brahman. And he used the word sacrificial horse over there. So meditation on the sacrificial horse as the cosmic person, Hiranyagarbha. That was the essence of the first Brahman. Second section was Agni Brahman. That's where we learned about the creation and evolution of the universe, the concept of death and sacrifice. Third section was called Udgit Brahman. Udgit. He taught us how to meditate on the vital force. And there was a beautiful allegory of the warfare between the Devatas and the Danavas, divine forces and the demonic forces. That's why we read about the Dev-Asur Sangram in all our scriptures. Constantly negative and positive forces, there is a fight between them. Both of them want to win. Section 4 was Purush with Brahman. And that's where the saga of the creation was explained. Section 5 was Saptha Brahman. So meditation on the 7 forms of food. Saptha. We also learned about the objects of desires, manifestations of the Supreme. And the 6th section, the last section of this Madhukand, was Ukt Brahman. Meditation on the names, forms, and actions. Naam, Roop, Karma, as the manifestations of the Hiranyagarbha. So there are 5 more chapters left. So the first section, the world is compared to a sacrificial horse. So it's like a comparison with the different limbs of the horse with this world. That's all. So that is like it for us to meditate upon. Because in old times, horse sacrifice, which is called Ashvamedha. So there's a very esoteric and philosophic meaning behind that yajna. Sure, the kings, they wanted to conquer the other kingdoms. That's why they did it. That's why it was a very well-known and popular yajna, Ashvamedha yajna. We see it in Ramayana also. We see a lot of other kings in other scriptures performing that yajna. And the sacrificer was aiming at achieving victory over the kingdoms of the earth. But as a meditator, what are we trying to aim? So the people with the higher thoughts and experience are the people who call them that they're on the path of spirituality. This sacrifice really means conquering the lower mind, our own mind. Not the land outside, not anybody else's mind, not anybody else's wealth, but our own mind. So it is a way of inner meditation. for gaining sovereignty over our own self. We all know the followers of the Karam Kand, especially if they are following the Sakam Bhakti, they are more interested in the external aspects. But the students of Upanishads, they penetrate deep into the inner spiritual significance. So do not get confused with the Ashvamedha Yajna that we are supposed to conquer the outer world. No, we got to conquer our own inner world, where a lot of desires are embedded, a lot of sanskars are there. We need to conquer those. And that's how we can have a vision of the cosmic spirit. So from our own, when we realize we are the Atma, then we expand this consciousness externally also, that everything is nothing but God. So this is the meaning over here. That's the reason he's giving us all the different examples in this chapter. Okay. So then next one is called Agni Brahman. Over here, the topic of creation in a very systematic way, how the world evolved, starting right from the unmanifested state of creation. And he referred this by the term death, the unmanifested. And step by step, he proceeded with the emergence of the 5 great principles in the system of creation. The formation of an embryo in the water, the formation of the earth, and the birth of the firstborn Viraj, and the interesting conception of the birth of time factor and the production of sound, which leads to form a definite idea about the genius of the seers of the Upanishads, whom we call seers. In this section, the last 2 mantras are very deep in their import, very mystic in their expression. And again, that horse sacrifice is mentioned here. It's a beautiful representation, because horse sacrifice was the main topic of the first section. From over here, the horse sacrifice is viewed from a different perspective. So the importance of cosmic identification is stressed in almost every mantra in this section. And then the third section, Udgit, meditation on the prana. This is there are a lot of mantras in this section. Contemplation on the cosmic prana through the individual prana. Sometimes we think prana is only inside us. No, prana is everywhere. See, just like Brahm is everywhere, prana is everywhere too. And he talked about the restraint of the senses and the mind. That is a Atam Sanyam. So this section starts with the story about the 2 forces, divine and demonical. And they are the offsprings of Prajapati, both of them. Father is the same, Prajapati. But gods and the demons, they continue to rival with each other. We think that siblings fight only these days in Kali Yuga. It has been happening always. They had different mothers, but the same father. These two gods and demons are the twin forces which stand for the sum total of sense organs. So it's like a virtuous and the good actions are named God. By the virtue of vicious actions, they are called the demons. Okay? So Dev Asur Sangram. With this mouth of mine, should I recite the mantras or should I curse somebody or gossip or hurt somebody? One is a divine, the other one is demonic. Constantly there's a struggle between in the world also, in the individual person also. So Udgit chanting here stand for the holy and sattvic qualities and the actions of the senses. So Udgit really means meditation on holiness. We saw in this section that the gods, they thought of purifying themselves because they wanted the evil forces to be extinct. They asked the organ of speech, nose, eye, ear, mind, and the rest to sing Udgit. All of them obeyed. That was a time when demons got frightened. They thought that gods will defeat them. So what happened? They pierced all the senses with evil. And the dark forces did not allow the sattva to express and predominate in the individual. Through the individual, even in the society. So in the end, Pran chanted the Udgit. And a consequence of that was the demons were blown out in all directions and they perished. Another word we learned in this section is dur. Vital force is known as dur, D-U-R, dur. Death remains far away from Pran. So Pran took away the sins of the gods, deposited them at the end of the quarters. And the mind was pure, free from this evil, but still not completely immune. So after subjugating the sense impulses, one must transcend them. This is the sadhana we need to do. We cannot just relax. We got to stay alert. Because this, whether you want to call it demons or the evil forces or the negative tendencies, they can attack our mind, our senses anytime. And there's another term we learned over here for the prana, ayasya angiras. That means the essence of all limbs. Because we know that if the vital force is not moving in any part of our body, that part does not function. That's why he called the pran as ayasya angi ras. Ras of the angs. He also said pran is Brihaspati, Lord of Brihati. Brihati is a Vedic meter, just like a Gayatri is a meter. Brihati is also a meter. The self of all forms of knowledge, speech. Brihaspati. It is all pervading. Pran is also known as the wealth of Sham. So the control of this mind, the peacefulness of the mind is related with the prana also. So that's why when we even do our Hatha Yoga, we say this prana and the mind, make sure periodically you connect them. That's where the peace is going to come. Then the fourth section, Purushvidha Brahman. This section deals with a very important subject of creation of the universe. Because it's very difficult to grasp all of this with the extroverted mind. Because the very word creation, when applied to the phenomena of this universe, has a special connotation. This word itself loses its ordinary meaning. The concept of three different things as the creator, the created, and the act of creation actually does not exist in the creation of the universe. Because created is not essentially different from the creator. So that's why the act of creation non-different from the creator. So in other words, the creator does not stand outside the creation. See, just like a pot maker makes the pot standing away from the pot, but the creator is not standing away from the creation. This is the fact we need to remember. This is the uniqueness of our Upanishadic philosophical knowledge. It is not just an accident this creation happened. It's not like the incidents were recorded in human history. Time and space, speech, thought, action, everything that is imaginable by the human mind, they are all products of the mysterious creation. That's why in this section, the seer says that the Supreme Self alone was. Brahm was, that was it. This self, the Atma or Brahm, all these names have come into being only subsequently, after creation. The nameless, formless, we may call it the being, alone was. And that alone is, and that alone will be. But we as human beings perceive this world of variety in a place of the duality or even the multiplicity. That's why we ask for the cause of this world. And to satisfy our minds, our questions, this Upanishad states that the characteristics of the effect are potentially present in the cause. And the truth is that the Supreme Atma cannot have anything other to it. It's the purest of the pure. There's no blemish. There's no bigger Atma and a smaller Atma. There's no this God or that God. It is only one, absolute. So that's why this section is known as Purushvidha Brahman. Purushvidha. Purush becomes conscious of himself. And this Purush means the Atma. Purush does not mean a man. There's no gender in the Atma. Purush becomes conscious of himself. Besides this self-consciousness, I am, there is nothing outside. Aham Brahmasmi. And therefore, there was no consciousness of object or objective consciousness. When the reality is reflected on itself, it comes out first as the I, the subject. It is present in every being, even in an atom. And that's why we see in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna using the term I. That I is not, he's not saying I, the Devaki's son I. No. I, the Atma, which is not different than Paramatma. It is a reflection of the original I, the Purush Vidh. And we need to meditate on this Purush. And this Purush who is not even one, but non-dual, becomes the first cause. And in this section, we saw a beautiful description of a unique transformation of the absolute into the first cause. And it is said in this section that a single cause became the size of a man and a wife in embrace, two in one. The single underwent a split in itself, became two, and in spite of the two, the one remained as the one. And we have to understand that all the subsequent multiplicity also is without losing the original unity. So in this creation of the universe, the first cause, the Purusha, is not destroyed, nor depleted, not even touched or affected in the least. Yet he is present in every atom of his vast creation. That's why, again, going back to Bhagavad Gita, what did Lord Krishna say? I am the eternal seed. Eternal seed means, see, normally seed perishes when the saplings come out. But this eternal seed, even after the creation happens, the universe and the multi-universes come out of him. It stays intact. That's what was mentioned in this section. This is the great mystery of creation. Why it's a mystery? Because human logic and reasoning cannot explain this universal phenomena. Because we try to understand with the help of our intellect. Intellect is nothing but part of Prakriti, which is, by definition, it's not infinite, it's finite. It cannot understand. Then he talked about, in this section, the urge for reproduction, which is a part of the original cosmic urge to become two and at the same time remain one. Both simultaneously. So there's a both pain and pleasure in desire and fulfillment, as with the husband and wife, perhaps. Everybody is only one half, and the one half is always dissatisfied. It wants to grab the other half and becomes the whole. We learned about the Manu also. The first man is one half, and the Shatrupa, the other half, the first woman. So this was a rather large, quite a few mantras in this section. The names and the forms, manifestations of the Supreme Being also mentioned here. Suffering in the sansar due to the sin of seeing a differentiation, he mentioned. Seeing the distinction, even though it is a non-dual, but whenever we create the distance between us and the others, he says that's a suffering. Every atom of his creation is he only. He says, meditate on that. And this Upanishad has given the nature of this great knowledge by which one can know everything, possess everything by becoming everything. So through meditation, this knowledge, the knowledge of Brahma, always remains revealed and it is never obscured. So continuing the story of creation in this section, division of society is also mentioned, depending upon the predominant psyche of the individual. And those groups are like Brahmins, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. The spiritual group, the ruling group, the economical group, and the labor group. And this grouping is universal. It's not particular to any country or any period. It started with the creation of the world by the Creator. And again, going back to Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna mentioned the same thing. I am the author of this, he says. In the Satya Yuga, the original condition, there was no grouping actually, because principle of dharma was complete. It was a spontaneous nature of each and every individual to follow the dharma. But as the time passed, externalization of the consciousness increased. That means the identifications with the body in Treta Yuga. Then Kshatriya manifested itself as Indra, Varun, Som, Rudra, all those devatas. So in this section, we learned in detail about all that, the division. Then another beautiful part of this section is knowledge and power. He says knowledge and power worked hand in hand. Knowledge is the source of power. Power without knowledge is self-destructive. So the urge for creation in the Purusha then manifested itself as the principle of material wealth. And that's how the further subdivision of the society happened. So this was the great principle of dharma. This is the law of the world. The relentless law, the divine law, the eminence of the Creator himself in the created. We have a few more minutes. Let's look at section 5, Saptha. So this section deals with 7 kinds of food. And the term food stands for the objects of the senses. The whole universe is the food of prana, the cosmic vital force. He said one food is the common food for all. And then there are 2 foods for gods in the form of sacrifices, and 1 for animals, and 3 for one's own self. And this was all symbolic. And as long as the ignorance lasts, the external world of pleasure, pain would persist. So that's why he keep on mentioning that remove this ignorance with the help of the knowledge. When he says two kinds of food allotted to gods, the two oblations offered in the sacrifices, so that means that motive behind the performance of sacrifice is very important. We should not perform sacrifices with selfish aims. Real sacrifices are those performed for purposes which can take us to the higher realm. And the one food for animal is milk. We all know. And the last three kinds of food, he said, which comes from the meditations. The results for actions in the form of speech, mind, and vital force. We all know that those are the principal factors in human life. So words spoken through the organs of speech, the thoughts thought of by the mind, and the actions performed by the prana. So again, he's just going into the details of our life. This section also encourages us to meditate on the speech, mind, and prana. He says the earth, sky, and heaven constitute the physical world of objects. Rig Ved, Yajur Ved, and Sam Ved, they form the whole realm of knowledge. Gods in the heavens, the mains in the intermediate region, and the human beings in the world. Mother, father, and child, they constitute the family. What is known, what is yet to be known, and what is unknown, respectively. So it's like symbolically, he gave us how to meditate. There's nothing left to stand outside one's speech, mind, and vital force. Because these meditations, they help us go deeper. And again, in this section, he talked about the Adhibhotik manifestations, Adhidevic side also, and Adhyatmic also. So that's another way to meditate. So he keeps on encouraging us to meditate, meditate, meditate. And there's another meditation on the identity of the creative principle with the time factor. The lunar month, he talked about quite a bit. 16 parts or the digits. He referred to the three worlds in this section also, the world of human beings, the world of mains, and the world of gods. All the organs in all beings, as well as their presiding deities, he says they are all part of and parcel of me, the Brahma. I, self of all, the source of all, or even their movements. If the meditation is perfect, there is a bliss, there's a calmness, there's a oneness. And the last section, Ukt Brahman, it is the shortest of all these Brahmans, only 3 verses. Saptha, I told you that means the cause. And in this one, he talked about the equalizing force. Equalizing force being the support for all the particular forms is Brahm. You can call it a substratum or you can call it equalizing force. Because this is the one which supports all names, all forms, and even the actions. So when we say Brahma, that is a name. When we have certain form in our mind, that's also Brahma. And support is the Brahma. So the world is one of the particular forms carved out of the general form. And the general form being present in all particular forms. And it is the equalizing force. Cosmic body of the Virat is the reservoir from which all particular forms of actions are drawn out. All names, all forms, all actions are contained in this universal cosmic being. So in other words, you can understand this supreme is covered by the world. It's veiled by this objective world. And we see only the names and the forms and not the being. Whether it's our own body or the other bodies we deal with, what do we look at? We look at the body. Even the body, the outer skin of the body, outer height and the width of the body. But it is only a covering. Substratum is the Atma in that body. The same way for this universe also. Whether we see all these planets, the stars, or even in our Earth planet, when we see all the trees and the animals, we normally look at only the outer form. Some forms we like, the other forms we can't stand. But we never penetrate through the form into the essence. It is like seeing the waves, foams, and the bubbles on the surface, and just getting absorbed into only that and missing the vision of the great, majestic ocean that lies beneath the surface. So, in other words, through all these mantras, he is taking our mind towards the essence. And in reality, he is saying that detach yourself from the sense objects, detach yourself from the transient, phenomenal, perishable, unreal world of names, forms, and actions. So if we are detaching from there, where are we attaching? Because as long as we have a mind, it would like to attach somewhere. Because normally it's attaching to the names and the forms outside, the one which we like. It runs after it. So he says through these meditations, whichever meditation appeals to you, attach yourself to the eternal, to the never changing, immortal, the innermost Atma. So detaching from the unreal and attaching to the real. Only as a human being we can do that. And for this we need to do sadhana. So even if you don't understand all these difficult mantras, but this deep message, the main message, the message which we get from Bhagavad Gita also, Ramayana also, Yoga Vishishta also, other Gitas also, same message. Are we working on that? Are we really paying some attention every day? Not just walking here and there at that time, paying full attention, sitting down, just full concentration. Are we penetrating through the veils of Maya or not? This is what we have to look into. And next week we will start the Ajat Shatru Brahman. That is the first section of chapter 2. And chapter 2 has 6 sections. So Ajat Shatru Brahman. And I gave you that the meaning of this name, Ajat Shatru. Someone who doesn't have any enemy. Enemy is not born for that person. Ajat Shatru Brahman. Okay, so let's stop it here. And I hope it helped a little. I know it takes a lot longer than that, but we have already gone through the details in our other classes. You can go back to those videos if you want to understand a little deeply. And you have the book also. Try to study it on your own. You might have a different interpretation of these mantras, and you can always discuss it with all of us. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Hershji.